G'day everybody, Wade Northhausen here for Billboard Battalion. Today is Friday the 23rd of August 2024 and we wanted to do a bit of a wrap up. We've been across to Bendigo today to the Reset Victoria rally put on by a number of farmers and other people in the community across at the All Seasons in Bendigo. The whole idea of getting across there today was a bit of an urgent, put together fairly quickly, because Jacinta Allen, the Victorian Premier, was doing a Meet the Rural Press engagement across there. So a number of farmers decided they'd sort of set up a bit of a rally, a protest rally, which is really a great idea. We did see farmers from all across the state, from Wimmera, Mallee, across the northeast, and they were, I reckon there would have been around about 350 people, and we had a bit of a rough sort of head count, and that's about what we reckon. So I just wanted to do a bit of a rundown. We were interested to see, what the theme of it was all going to be and how far people would go. And I think there might have been, about 8 or 9 speakers. And, some of the speakers were just kids. And I think that was a really great idea, because, one of the themes of the rally was about the kids' future in agriculture. And, they had some really great kids there, spoke well, made some really terrific points. And I think that was had a great impact in trying to highlight the future for our kids in our farming and in our agriculture. So one of the things that I would have said, and this is where quite often we see things fall down, and that is that the messaging and what people in these kind of things say. Billboard Battalion has been to quite a number of meetings across Victoria with regard to the renewable energy, in particular the transmission lines, and a part of the rally's whole thing today was, all sorts of industries, but it pretty well focused on farming and on the renewable energy. So, we saw again quite a number of the leaders, if you like, in these kind of things, who refused to speak about a number of the issues that Billboard Battalion speak about, and that is that you cannot look at a couple of issues in isolation, and that's directly affecting our agricultural sector, because there's things that are happening, as we've said hundreds of times, are part of a global strategy, and that's the name of the game. And when we're seeing all this renewable energy stuff, we're hearing issues about mining. A number of the people today were very, very concerned about mining on their land and coming in, about a lot of the things that the mining and the renewable energy affects their neighbours. And we heard one woman there who talked about their property of not quite 300 acres, and their banks had downgraded the property value by $1.5 million because of this stuff that was going on. And so there's a number of very good points to be made, but once again, I spoke to some of the organisers, and they refuse to even mention the fact that what's happening is part of a global plan. And if they refuse to admit that and address that problem at that level, then you're never ever going to do any good. And we heard all about communities coming together and forming up to fight this and so on. Well, you've got to do a bit more than just form up into community groups. You've got to actually call out the problem. And with anything, if you're going to fix a problem, first of all, you have to admit there is one, and you've got to admit, in this particular case, what is causing the problem. So we all know the World Economic Forum, the United Nations, and the World Health Organization are behind all this. But it's incredible that we have so many people who refuse to admit it or even talk about it. And I must, say at this point that one of the speakers has some involvement with a group called AMO. I think it's Say No to Option 5 or 5A or something like that, who's actually blocked some of Billboard Battalion stuff on their page or site or whatever it is going on. So when you've got speakers or so-called leaders who do that, then you're just not addressing the problem. And you can talk about conspiracy theorists or, I don't know, tinfoil hat wearers, all this sort of stuff, whatever you want. But the facts are the facts. It's just that simple. And if you don't address these problems, then you're actually helping them to create the problem. You're giving them a free pass. And we heard today a number of the speakers, and, these are just average everyday people. They're, in many cases, very nice people, top community members and so on. But they're talking about, they're going to stop this or that or the other thing. If the bulldozers come or the excavators or whatever, if the government acquires the land, some of these speakers said, we've told the government and we've told the electricity companies, go on and acquire the land, go to court, you'll win it. But, just try and get past us. Well, the fact is, if that is the strategy, I think you're in very serious trouble, because the part that we play is, as I say, the big picture. And if the organisers of today and many of the speakers don't recognise that they're part of a big plan and that there are other strategies being put into place to take them down and to destroy their kids' future, then I find that pretty irresponsible. I think if you're just dogmatic and not budging on, not wanting to know extra information, not wanting to know the real story. And as I spoke to one of the organisers today who said, I'm just a farmer, I just know these few little things here, or words to that effect. And if that is the situation, then get people to speak alongside who do know, because that's a very, very big problem. And, we heard a lot today about criticising Jacinta Allen, and justifiably so. But if you don't accept that, all the major political parties are the problem, then you've got a problem. If you don't accept that reality is reality, then you have a problem. And if you're going to say that, you're just a farmer and you don't know much more than that, you'd rather be home working the farm, I totally get that. But then, as I say, if you don't know the whole story, then by all means, have your say, but also get the people who do know the story. Get the people who do have the expertise in the field, because that's like saying that you have some sort of a rust problem in a crop or some kind of a deficiency or a pest problem, and talking to the local builder to try and work it out instead of speaking to an agronomist. It's like saying that you've got a broken leg, that you should go and see the hospital or the doctor to get it fixed, and you go and talk to a bricklayer. That is on a par. So as it is at the minute, the politicians are playing games with us, and if we don't work out exactly what's what, if we don't hold them to account, then you're going to just have not only the continuing problems you've got, they're going to get a million times worse. So, we don't want to see rallies where people are encouraged to do the same old thing, criticise one party or the other, one government, one premier, and just call for people to come together and fight. You've got to have some sort of plan, and you can't have a plan if you don't have the knowledge base. So this is, something that Billboard Battalion has spent a lot of time and effort in doing. Many, many years in learning what this is, what's going on, what's about. And we speak all over the country about these issues and are starting to get people to wake up about the real deal. But when you've got groups who would in fact block, one of Billboard Battalion's members just simply for telling the truth, then you've got some big problems. And when we say, we hear a few of these farmers say, they're going to lay down in front of bulldozers and all that sort of stuff. Well, that's very, very admirable, very brave. But at the end of the day, you're either going to get run over, locked up, or whatever. So at the end of the day, we need to realise that the government who are working for the World Economic Forum have put many strategies into place to get you off your land, to make it so that you don't have any control. And that is what's happening. We've got situations where so-called Aboriginal land councils are now being given positions from ultimately the World Economic Forum to take over control of land. We've got situations where governments have put in place things where you lose the titles of your land, you lose ownership. We've got new rules and regulations that the Australian government and other associated criminals are putting in place under this environment garbage to make it a million times harder to farm, to make you unviable, and for them to take control of everything under the so-called environment. And this is going to include laws where if you try and stop this fraudulent renewable energy thing, then you'll end up in big trouble. So all the rhetoric and the tough talk about, standing together and blocking bulldozers and they're going to fight this and they're going to stop the transmission companies and the windmill companies and all that stuff will equate to nothing unless the only option we have is to come together as a community, as an agricultural community and a complete community, in fact, and say what the actual problem is and bring the population on board to fight side by side with us. And if we can't achieve that, then it's over. And rallies like today will equal nothing because they will wipe the floor with us anyhow. So, some pretty hard words, but sometimes a bit of hard love is what's required. And the bottom line is we are at war. That's the bottom line. We are at war. And, Billboard Battalion put on a lot of events, put on a lot of things that we do, and it would be interesting to see if people who were like the organisers of today actually got behind Billboard Battalion and stopped being so divisive and actually tried to get some kind of unity, some kind of team working, some kind of community group working. So just a little bit of something we had to say today. One other thing that we did today over at Bendigo was we saw a number of the news crews there, like the old Channel 7, Channel 9, Channel 10, etc., who obviously were there because the Premier was there. So therefore they also did some coverage on the rally, the farmers' rally. And I decided a good time was to take our crew, our Billboard Battalion crew, and become our own media and go and interview Channel 7. So we did an interview for a few minutes with the Channel 7 reporter there and the cameraman, and turned things around a little bit and put some of the hard questions to the Channel 7 crew, and which one of the things I said was you should do an interview with Billboard Battalion. So they did that for a couple of minutes. So it'll be interesting to see if that goes to air, which it probably won't, because I can certainly imagine Channel 7 not liking the actual, being held to account, actually asking the hard questions and why they're not informing people, why they're nothing more than just puppets of the government. And I'm quite sure this is something that's never happened before that I'm aware of with all the freedom groups and movements is we actually go after the news crews, the actual so-called journalists, and put it to them, because we've seen the mainstream media doing nothing more than selling the propaganda for the government, denying the Australian people the right to know the information they should. We've seen them criticise people such as us, all the protesters in Melbourne with all the COVID stuff. We've seen it all. So, Billboard Battalion is now, we're doing lives from politicians' offices. We're going to start trying to speak to the politicians, and we're going to start broadcasting their responses and what they're talking about, what they're saying, or if they refuse. Because the Australian people know that the politicians ultimately are the criminals, most of them anyhow. They are the ones that have caused the problems that we have, all the problems with COVID, with job losses, with lockdowns, with all the expenses that people need to live, where people can't afford to feed their families, can't afford to pay the bills, can't afford food. People are now more and more living in cars and tents on the side of the river. So that's one of the things that we're doing, is getting into these politicians, and we're going to do more and more of taking these news crews and journalists on, because we're sick to death of seeing, the lies that come out of many of these newsrooms, many of the mainstream media. So it'll be very interesting to see if the short interview that I did with Channel 7 today actually gets a run on the television, which I'm pretty sure it won't, because that's just how that sort of goes. But we're going to continue to put pressure on them. And, whenever we see a news crew working, we're going to go after them and do interviews with them, call them out, let the Australian people see the questions that they should be asking of our politicians, but are not. So just a little bit of something there that's a bit different, and we're going to be doing a lot of stuff that's very different. So it's just our wrap up for today from the Bendigo Victorian Reset rally, and I must say that very, very bad choice of words, extremely, hugely disastrous, shocking term for this rally. And the reason I say that is because we see the whole reset thing. These words are the words that Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum use, as do many of the celebrities and many of the rich and powerful people, particularly during COVID, where they said COVID is a great opportunity for a reset. So, as I said the other day, we're hearing a number of the journalists, particularly from the ABC, if memory serves me correctly, are now using that term. They're now talking about, a reset this, a reset that. That is Klaus Schwab's words. That is all the elite's words to people who hate us and want to take us down. So I advise anybody, do not use the term reset, because that's just trying to get people used to that term, so that when you hear the government and the WEF and UN and so on use that term, people accept it. Well, hell no. We don't accept it, and people should not be using that term. So we'll bring you up to date more as we go along. There's a lot happening in this space. The renewable energy thing is a disaster, but it's growing. We're talking to people from all over Australia about what's happening with renewable energy, and we're working very hard to try and expose what a disaster this thing is, how serious and critically bad it is, and we'll continue to do that work. And it would be nice if many of the people who are organising and are fighting against it, many of the community groups who are raising a lot of money and wasting it on legals and legal fees and so on, because even if you did win against the planning minister, then you're still going to get smashed with all the other things that are happening, which you refuse to admit or even acknowledge are happening. So I would say to people, if you really do care about your kids having a future in farming, if you're actually genuine, then get with the program, get with the plan, understand what's happening, and be prepared to fight the actual fight. It's one thing to say that you're concerned about your kids' future, which I certainly am. Billboard Battalion certainly is, absolutely. It's another to actually fight this battle in a way that you have a chance of winning. And if you're just going to work in a small sound chamber, a little echo chamber, if you're not going to expand your knowledge base to the big picture stuff, or get the people who do know about the big picture stuff to talk to it, then you're going to lose. Now, I've been saying this for quite a long time. There's a handful of people who get a little bit narky when I say that kind of stuff. Well, bad luck. That's tough. Get over it. Because I can tell you right now, in a few years' time, when you look back and you see what they've got planned for you, and if we can't win this war, when you see what comes, then I'm here to tell you, you're going to get narky. But it will be too late. Because you didn't want to listen. And I find it really bizarre that one of the main organisers of today's rally was going on about Jacinta Allen not listening. Not listening. And I thought to myself at the time, well, it's a toss-up to see which one is the bigger not listener. Because I can tell you right now, I've never spoken to Jacinta Allen, and I don't know whether she listens or not, but I can tell you right now that quite a number of our farmers who are supposedly fighting against this are in fact the ones who are not listening. They don't want to know. They don't realise how very serious this is. They don't realise and understand the amount of things that have been set up to go against them and what's coming. We've got a hell of a lot that's coming right now. Massive changes to all sorts of things, not to mention this new rubbish about monkeypox or bird pox or chook flu or whatever the hell these half-wits are actually trying to sell and what they're on about. Well, that's a disaster, and it's coming our way. So we would be much better off to act as a community, understand the big picture, because if you don't, you are going to lose. And we're going to see all our kids have no future. Sit there and tell us about how you're fighting for your kids' future if you refuse to understand what the hell you're even fighting about in the first place. And as I said, get behind the people who do. Wade Northhausen here for Billboard Battalion, signing off from our wrap-up of the Bendigo rally today. We'll catch you later.